Hey guys, Tara here for Destructoid, and this is the fourth and final video in our Borderlands 2 walkthrough series. This one's going to focus on Maya, the Siren character, and we're just going to hop right into her skill tree right now and check out some of her abilities. As you can see, her main action skill is Phase Lock, which lets her suspend enemies in air while they just basically sit there helpless. Her skill tree, like all the other characters, has three different branches. You've got Motion, which revolves around improving things like speed and reload and recharge times. You've also got Harmony, which focuses mostly on her healing abilities, which are kind of now spread out between her and Salvador the Gunzerker, since there's not a true medic class anymore. And then you've also got the Cataclysm skill tree, which is going to do things like increase the damage of your guns and abilities. I'm going to talk more about specific abilities a little bit later on, so for now we can just kind of head out there and see what we're dealing with. Right now we're playing in the Caustic Caverns level. This is actually the first level of the game that they ever let people play, I think back in April of this year, and back then they hadn't shown off the Axton or the Zero characters at all. So right now my co-op team just consists of 2 Salvador the Gunzerkers and 2 Sirens. And the basic mission that we're on here is a side quest, actually, in which Marcus, who you might remember from the first Borderlands, he has asked us to retrieve some items from a safe. We don't really know what they are, we just know that they are inside one of the monsters in this level, and we need to kill it and retrieve those items. So a couple big changes that you should immediately notice from the previous game is that there's a lot more variation in environments and in enemies this time around. So whereas the first game was very drab, a lot of brown colors in there, everything has a lot more brightness and contrast now, and even the set pieces are all created on a much grander scale than before. And of course, one of the big complaints from the previous game is the lack of variation in enemies, and so Gearbox has really done a lot to kind of ramp that up. In this particular level, you'll see a lot of these crystallis enemies, and the basic strategy here is to go for their weak spot, which are the crystals on the bottom of their feet. And this speaks a lot to the overall strategy involved in the game. Every enemy is going to have different vulnerabilities that you'll have to discover eventually. So for instance, Maya's gun skills rely heavily on elemental weapons, and if you happen to glance at the weapons menu earlier in the demo, you'd see that actually 2 of the 4 weapons I currently have equipped do heavy amounts of corrosive damage, and those are going to be pretty much useless to any enemies in this area, since we are in the Caustic Caverns. So instead, I'm going to want to refocus my strategy more on using the Phase Lock ability and my ranged weapons, like this rocket launcher that has a really high chance of causing explosions. So the great thing about playing Maya in co-op is that she makes a really great support character. She's got a lot of healing properties, some of which you will recognize from the first game, not going to say which ones, and she's also got a lot of passive skills meant to augment her Phase Lock ability, and one of the ones that we chose in this demo is the Converge skill, which acts like gravity basically, pulling other enemies closer to your Phase Locked target, which looks really cool when it happens. Of course, this is not going to work for every enemy in the game. Phase locking will still do a little bit of instant damage, but for bosses and really powerful enemies like this guy, I'm going to want to change my strategy up a little bit and just opt for heavy fire instead. So here I've got my Guileless Plasma Caster, which has a high chance of electrocuting enemies, not to mention a really kick-ass animation. And I want to change things up a little bit, so I'm going to switch over to my Scarlet Corinthian gun, which happens to be really good for lighting enemies on fire. Okay, so we've managed to take down the beast, and now we're going to discover what these items are that Marcus wanted us to retrieve for him in this safe. And oh, look at that. It's lewd pictures of his ex-wife.
Hey there, sugar. I see you found some fairly fleshy snapshots of me. If you give those to me instead of my third ex-husband, I'll make it worth your while. Feel free to take a peek, though. I sure don't mind.
What a trifling hoe. So you'll notice on the right side of the screen we've got a couple different options on how to turn this quest in. We can either bring the pictures back to Moxie and get a cash reward, or we can bring them to her ex-husband Marcus, who will likely file them in the spank bank, but he has promised us an even better mysterious reward. Let's ask Salvador what we should do, Yeah, I don't think that keeping those pictures for ourselves is actually an option in the game. I'm sorry, Salvador. It's not gonna happen. But hey, we're nearing the end of the demo anyway, so it would probably behoove us to wrap this up. We're actually headed into the Thresher Beach area right now. If you want to see more of that environment or any of the other characters in the game, we've got tons of videos up. We've got walkthrough videos up for Axton on this channel as well. We've also got ones for Salvador the Gunzerker and Zero the Assassin over on our Rev3 Games channel. That's youtube.com/Rev3Games. And of course, we're going to have tons more Borderlands 2 coverage before the game comes out on September 18th. So if you liked this walkthrough, feel free to subscribe, comment, maybe if you're feeling crazy, even click on that like button underneath the video. It's right next to the dislike one. That's the one you don't want to click.